So to download the software, go to this website, and you can either download and compile the source code if you want to, or you can download this exe file for Windows, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to save this exe onto a folder at my desktop. There's also a PowerPoint tutorial that has more detail if you want to use that. And while you're at the website, I also have over 12,000 pages of sheet music that you can purchase. But if you buy the sheet music, you'll get access to a page that looks like this where you can download the PDF files. And you'll also get access to these editable PKL files. So if you want to do something like change the color scheme of the sheet music, you could download these files and then use the software to do that. And if there's any public domain sheet music that you want me to color coordinate, you can come to this website and you can just send me a link to the sheet music. As long as it's public domain, I can just add it to my website. If you have some sheet music that is not in the public domain, you want me to color convert it, you can send it to me through Fiverr. So open where you downloaded it and then just extract it. Once it's extracted, just click on it to run it. And at first the terminal will open, then a couple seconds later the program will open. I'll just keep this terminal in the top right corner of my screen. The first step is to just select a file to open. So I'm going to go open images, open PDF, and open this. Once it's loaded, some of the generic controls are to use the arrow keys to change the pages. You can scroll. You can use your I and O keys to zoom in and out. And some of the UI in the top left, this is the page indicator. It tells you what page you're on. This is your current feature type. You can set the feature type in the set feature type menu. So I want to change the bass clef, then we'll change the bass clef. Quarter note, change the quarter note. There's also keyboard shortcuts for these, so you don't have to use the menu. Then you have the feature add mode. There are 4 feature add modes. In this tutorial we'll only use current page indexed and single, but the current feature add mode and the current feature type are 2 variables that affect almost everything you do, so you should always be aware of them. But the feature add mode mostly determines which pages are affected when you do something. Then this is a variable called the erode strength. This erode strength affects some of the images that the computer operates on. To see these images, go to select image to view, and then here's the eroded intersection image. And if you turn the erode strength up, it becomes more eroded. Turn it down, less eroded. There are also the black and white image. The horizontally eroded image, which is the erode strength effects. And the vertical image, which is the erode strength effects. There are also keyboard shortcuts to view all these easier. For this tutorial, since we're working on computer generated images, it really doesn't matter what the erode strength percentage is because we'll just keep it at 100 for the most part. You also have the note width percentage. This is for when you are auto snapping the notes. Feeds into this function. And the other UI is essentially you'll probably never use. So the threshold percentage, the blackness scale, the staffline error, the allow note to be auto-extended checkbox, you'll probably never use. If you want to draw on the image, go to File, open current image in system's default.jpg editor, and then draw on it there. Save that image. And then go back to the program and hit File, Regenerate Images, and the widget comes up. So now I'm going to open a .pkl file to show you what the final product looks like. So I can save the current state of this program by going to Save Annotations. I'll call this start.pkl. And I'll open up a finished program right here. So the final goal is to have all of the features in the set feature type menu identified. So all the staff lines, clefs, bar lines, notes, and accidentals need to be identified. To identify it just means to put in a box. So if you go to your view menu, hit show borders and show crosshairs. You can also toggle on and off using your M key. See that everything's in a box. So all notes are in red boxes, treble clefs are in green boxes, bass clefs are in blue boxes, bar lines are in yellow boxes, and staff lines have green lines running through them. In addition to putting things in boxes, the notes and accidentals will also need to be colored, and the notes will also need to be shaded in the right direction. So there are 4 ways you can interact with the image. You can left click and drag, right click and drag. Left click is used for selecting features so that you can edit them. Some features can also be added using a single click, but every time you left click on the image, you need to be aware of your current feature type. So if my current feature type is bass clef, when I left click, I can only select bass clefs. Whenever you select something, just left click on it, and then a black box will highlight the feature you selected. And once a feature is selected, you can edit it by using your arrow keys to expand the border. You can use shift in your arrow keys to shrink the border. You can use control in your arrow keys to move the center. And if you have a note selected, you can use your A, B, C, D, E, F, G keys to change the color, and your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys to change how it's shaded. You can left click and drag to add a feature. So every time you left click and drag, you need to be aware of your current feature selected and your feature add mode. You can right click on the screen to delete a feature. So you need to be aware of your current feature type every time you right click on the screen. You can right click and drag to delete multiple features. So now I'm going to open our blank file that we started earlier. Now that we've got our blank file back open, the general overview of how this program works is you use what's called template matching to identify most of the notes, clefs, and accidentals. And template matching is just where the user highlights a portion of the image and then the program can go and find other parts of the image that look like the portion that you just highlighted. And then you use staff line detection and bar line detection to identify staff lines and bar lines. Then anything that isn't identified using template matching, you will then manually identify. And manually identifying a feature should only take 1 click of the keyboard and 1 click of the mouse. Then once all the features have been identified, you can use the algorithms in the region menu to automatically color all the notes and accidentals. So there are 2 ways you can add features. One is manual. To manually add features, change the feature add mode to single, and then set the feature type to the type of feature you want to add. So right now it's treble clef. So now I just left click and drag to add. If I want to add a bass clef, change my feature type to bass clef, and then left click and drag to add. But if I don't want to add manually, I can also template match. So to template match, change the feature add mode to either current page and next, current page, or all pages. For this tutorial, we'll only be using current page and next. But what template matching does is the user highlights a portion of the image, and then it will prompt you if you want a template match, and then it will go and find other parts of the image that reflect what you just highlighted. You can also see how many matches were found in your terminal. So on page 1 we found 5 treble clefs, and on page 2 we found 9 treble clefs. But the feature add mode current page and next makes it so that you only template match on the page you're currently looking at and the next pages, but not the previous pages. So now let me open up our blank program once again. We can get started with our first step, which is to go through every page and identify all the clefs. So set your feature add mode to current page and next, and then set your feature type to treble clef. Then left click and drag around the treble clef and confirm. And then set the feature type to bass clef. Left click and drag around the bass clef and confirm. Now go through and visually verify that all the clefs have been put into a box. If there's a clef that's not in a box, change your feature type to the type of clef that it is, and left click and drag to highlight. And then go through and do this on all pages until every clef has been put in a box. Once all the clefs have been identified, set your feature add mode to current page or next and go back to the start page. And then in the stafflines menu, select generate stafflines. And then go through each page and visually verify that all the stafflines have been correctly identified. Once you verify that all the stafflines are correct, go back to the start page, set the feature add mode to current page and next, and then select generate bar lines. Now go through each page and visually verify that all the bar lines have been correctly added. In this case, all the bar lines were correctly added, but if you wanted to manually add a bar line, you would set your feature type to bar line, set your feature add mode to single, and then you could delete them by using right click, and then you could add them by left click and dragging, or by just using a single click. As long as the staff lines have already been identified, a single click will just extend the bar line up to the staff lines. Now that all the clefs, staff lines, and bar lines have been identified, the next step is to identify your notes. But first, you can go to the view menu and turn off your staff lines because you don't need to see them anymore. But to template match your quarter notes, set your feature add mode to current page and next, set your current feature type to quarter note, and then template match your quarter notes. When you template match it, you want to do as I do, getting a little bit of white in the top left corner and a little bit of white in the bottom right corner. And for quarter notes, you only need to, if there are quarter notes that are physically connected, you only need to identify one of them. So in this instance where there are 4 quarter notes stacked on top of each other, we only need to identify this one, and then in a later step, when we auto extend everything, these other 4 will be found. Same with this quarter note right here. Since it's physically touching these other 2, it'll be found later. So you only need to template match quarter notes that are isolated. But go through each page and just make sure that the bulk of the notes have red boxes around them. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. You just want the majority of them. Now that we're back on the start page, we can auto extend our notes. So the first step to auto extend is to set your note width percentage. In general, you want to use 135 to 145 as your start. Right now is also a good time to save your progress. So I'll just call this to do auto snap. That way, if you mess up in the next part, you can just reload your progress. But go to the start page, set your feature add mode to current page and next, set your note width percentage to 135. You can also change the erode strength if you want to, but for a computer generated image, just use 100. And then go to notes, auto extend and center notes. And select enter. Then decrease the note width percentage by 10 to 15% and select it again. Decrease your note width percentage by another 10 to 15% and select it again. Now that everything's been auto snapped, you can select remove unauto snap notes. And now set your width percentage back to 125. And you can also color your notes now by selecting region, calculate note letters. Now the next step is to go through and manually identify any notes that weren't identified using auto snapping. So change your feature add mode to single, set your feature type to quarter note, and anywhere where there's just a single quarter note, you can just click on it to add. And it should be easy to identify where the missing quarter notes are because it'll be the only note that doesn't have color on it. But if you needed to add chords like this, you would use a left click and drag. So you would just do a little tiny drag, and then when it's auto snapped, it will find all the other attached notes. But just go through each page and add all the notes. Once all of the notes have been added, go back to the start page, set your feature add mode to current page and next, and extend the notes in all directions by 1 pixel, and do this twice. So now the next step is to identify all of your accidentals. So set the feature add mode to current page and next, and then set the feature type, the type of accidental you want to identify. So this is a sharp, so I'll select sharp. And then left click and drag to highlight the sharp and hit enter. Then that's a natural, so I'll select natural. But go through the page and template match as many accidentals as you can. Now that most of them have been template matched, you can use region, calculate accidental letters to give them color, and then go through and manually add any accidentals that are missing. To manually add In accidental, change your feature add mode to single, and then change your feature type to the type of accidental you want to add, and then just left click on the accidental. If an accidental is the wrong color, you can also change it right now. And then once all accidentals on a page have been identified, you can delete the accidentals that are highlighted in the key. And then go to the next page and do the same thing. Here I'm going to template match these sharps and color them. And then delete the key. Go to the next page, add this natural. And delete the key. Now that we're back on the start page, set the feature add mode to current page and next. Go to region, select calculate no accidentals. What this will do is it will, using the coordinates of the accidentals and the notes, it'll automatically shade all the notes. Now set your feature add mode to single. Set your key to the whatever key of the song of the sheet music is, and then set your feature type to key. If the whole key, if the whole page is in one key, you can just use set key for current page. You can also left click and drag to set the key only for the notes in the box that you've added. You can also do this. But since this whole song is in one key, just use set key for current page. Then go through each page until every page has the key set. Now it's done. And so the last thing to do is just to check for errors. But once you go through and you check for all errors, you can save. We call it final. And then you can save it as a PDF. For the second example, I'm going to go faster. So I'm going to be using my keyboard shortcuts. But first step is to identify all the clefs. So I can do that. It was important to note that whenever the computer is loading something, to just not touch the screen or try to do anything. All I'm doing is scanning for clefs that aren't in boxes. There's one. should also know that you only need to functionally identify things like clefs and barlines. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, now that all the clefs have been identified, change the feature add mode to current page and next, and then generate the staff lines. Then go through and make sure all of the staff lines are correct. And now that all the staff lines are correct, we can generate the bar lines. And make sure that all of these are correct. There's the missing bar line. And now is a good time to save our progress. So I'm just going to call this base.pkl. Now we can go through and do our notes. Typically it's best to template match your half notes and whole notes before your quarter notes. But when you template match half and whole notes, you want them to be not so tall. It's a little bit shorter than they actually are to allow for overlap. We got a false positive, so I'm going to undo that last one. It's better. Alright. It's also not a good practice to template match the small quarter notes. Typically I will just add those manually. Right now I'm just going through and trying to identify the bulk of my notes. It's also good to look at number of features that are found after removing overlapping features to tell you if your template matching is effective or not. If you get a really high number, then it means you probably did something wrong. If you get a really low number, then it means that you probably didn't do anything that effective. But if there are any false positives, I can just delete them now. False positives from notes aren't that big of a deal, so they aren't really much to worry about. Alright, now that the bulk of our notes have been identified, we can start auto snapping our notes. So feature add mode is current page and next. Go like this. And then since this did have half, use handle half note overlap, and then calculate the notes and remove the auto snap notes. Now go through and manually add anything that you missed earlier, like these moments. Actually, for this, I'll show if you did want to template match small notes. Typically, you only want to use the feature add mode current page. Set your feature type to quarter note and give a little bit of cushion around the notes. And I got a lot of them. Then hit Control A and look for any red boxes that are erroneous. There we go. And then you might want to turn your erode strength down, but 100 is fine. And then auto snap from a range of 105 down to 50. Then remove my auto snap notes. And then manually add anything that wasn't able to be template matched. This time you can also be looking for any notes that are crossing the region border or notes that are colored wrong. On computer generated images, notes will basically never be colored wrong. They'll only be colored wrong if they're closest to the wrong set of staff lines. This, for instance, should be a G. This should be an A. If note falls right exactly on a region border, you will have to manually color it. Alright, now that all the notes have been identified, we can extend their borders by 1 pixel. And then move on to identifying the accidentals. Flat. With accidentals, false positives are a problem. So you want to make sure that the number of features found is something that makes sense. If you see 1,000, you can know that you did something wrong. And delete the accidentals in the key. And just do the same thing on every page. This looks like a good candidate for template matching. Only found 2. Typically, I don't like template matching double sharps and double flats. Usually just isn't that useful because most songs don't have a lot of them. Alright, now that everything's been put into boxes, calculate the accidentals, and then set the key. Alright, now that everything's done, the last step would be to go through and manually verify that everything's correct. But I'm just going to consider it correct and save it.